when you look at the imagery of the Rephaim and the Nephilim, this is the house of dragon because of the seraphim offspring that is so popular that's out there today. And I call them the house of dragon in both books, and just because that's who they are. That's why I have this dragon seal on the cover of the book. And so this house of dragon, in the patriarchal bloodlines, as they track their genealogies back into prehistory, back to the original Rephaim and Nephilim, back to the gods, the patriarch godfather, that allegory in polytheism is called the dragon bloodline, because it's the patriarchal bloodline. Fairies or owls, so it'd be dragon or raven in the patriarchal allegory, and in the matriarchal, it's fairy or owl. Fairy is the dominant one. Dragon is the most popular one. You see that sort of come together, let's say, in King Arthur. King Arthur is a descendant of the Tuatha De Danann, the Shay, the Rephaim people. He's pale-skinned, probably red-haired variety there. And he's son of Uther Pendragon. And his wife is Guinevere, which is, as you take that back to Old Irish, means a phantom or a Shay spirit. And she's a fairy queen. And so they bring that together in that Lord of the Rings round table for the knights. And it's an allegory of creating a new Atlantis, is kind of the story that's going on there in a nutshell. Well, yeah, in a number of different ways, it's kind of a yes. And now I'm not really bothered by them. So I would be attacked in social media, and by the language they're using who they are. And so you get that out on the table and say, now let's have a legitimate discussion. And they don't like that. They'll go on for a little bit, but now you know that they're posing as a Christian and they're not. So you've already exposed them, and that they don't want to deal with your arguments. So they're not generally as high up at that point. I did a few shows with Freemasons. Wow. One was, they didn't tell me they were Masonic until the end. And he agreed to do more, but then he got back and he sent me these long things on Messenger that was just horrific. I guess he got his knuckles wrapped pretty good because he didn't fare very well. But at the end of the interview, he said, what would you think if I told you that, and I knew the questions were all loaded questions all the way through. So it was just, exactly where do they fit in? They said, what would you think about if I told you you were interviewed by a 32-degree adept? I said, well, I know you're young, but that's kind of an oxymoron. I said, in a 33-degree Scottish Rite, that's adepthood. The other system is York, which is the old 3-degree system. So I said, the only way you can call yourself an adept without not telling the truth is that you're a pureblood. And as a pureblood, you would be initiated from childhood, and you're not old enough yet to take a full adept title. And that title is a 32-degree pureblood. And he said, yeah, that's it. you nailed it. But he never released the interview, and it was just, yeah. Boo. Yeah. So, but I do take steps to protect myself. But here's the thing, though, is I think what they understand, because we're getting closer to them doing the things that they want to accomplish, is that the size of their organization is so large, and the things that they're doing so unimaginably enormous that they're not going to be stopped, right? So it's like, blow your brains out, because nobody's going to believe it because it's too big. Yeah, I spend a lot of time on the two Enochs early on in the book, and it's amazing how many Christians aren't taught that there's two Enochs. First son of Cain, and then son of Jared, the one who's taken to heaven. And that you have these books out there that are named the books of Enoch. And that both these individuals were very, very important to prehistory and history. And that Enoch, in the Polychronicon of the secret societies, the oral tradition before it was written down, that they also sort of merge into the Bible and the secret societies. Adam was taught all this knowledge in Eden, and he was running, as I mentioned, this huge agrarian facility with just himself, and then later he needed a helper. So the best thing that was decided was to create one from his rib, as opposed to who are all these females that were created in day 6. Or God knows what else would have been considered for a helper. But that was never, because they're Alpha and Omega. They knew what they were doing all the way through. But you have all of this knowledge that he would have learned. He would have needed knowledge of astronomy and the changing of the seasons and the different things that he needed to do. And so this knowledge was passed on to Cain and to Abel and to Seth. And then Cain, when he left, he passed that knowledge on to Enoch, as the polytheist Gnostics believe. And Enoch is the one who really develops these sciences and splits them into the 7 sacred sciences, as they called them back then, which we know today as the 7 liberal arts. And they have 4 main goals to it, all things that we see today. One is to not give God credit for anything. Yep. The second thing is to degrade God and dismiss him. The third thing is to lead people away from God. And the fourth thing is to honor the pantheon of the gods. That's why you see all of these pantheons and gods throughout science and the 7 liberal arts, as it's also known as. And so they developed these 7 disciplines, and they decided that the knowledge was too important for the mundane. And so they developed a mystical religion around it, which is what I call Enochian mysticism. And it's this Enochian mysticism that is now going to merge with the knowledge that's going to come from the fallen angels, or in polytheism, the gods. And it's going to become part of the organizational infrastructure or organizational structure of the antediluvian world when the Nephilim are created in the generations of Jared and Noah, that they're going to usurp the kingship. So they're going to have control of the armies, they're going to have control of the government, and they have control of the religion that they're imposing on the entire antediluvian world. And they take this knowledge to a level that we're just catching up to this day, because we can't build the things that they did or build the things into those things that they did. And that's why you have this, one of the 3 overarching signs, along with the birth pangs, or the beginning of sorrows, the fig tree generation, but you also have the other overarching sign as the days of Noah. And so we need to understand the days of Noah. I get into that in great detail in the second book. And so this knowledge is, and the religion and the Rephaim, this all gets transplanted, however you want to believe it, on the other side of the flood. And in the polytheist version, Hermes finds these 2 pillars where the location to the knowledge that were written on 36,525 books, buried in 9 vaults stacked on top of each other underneath the pyramids, were located. They'd been two pillars. One would survive a water apocalypse, and one would survive a fire apocalypse. And they obviously weren't sure which one was coming based on that. And Hermes, called Harmine in the Polychronicon account in the History of Freemasonry Legends, takes this knowledge to Nimrod at Babel, where the knowledge comes from to build Babel City, to build Babel Tower, and they impose the Enochian mysticism, which becomes the Babel religion, and Nimrod becomes an antichrist archetype figure ruling over all of the sway of Noahites at that point in time. And this is the allegory for Babylon, which is rooted in the word Babel, as you take that back into Greek and then to its source out of Hebrew, that the end time religion is going to be recaptured and part of the beast religions, because this is organizational structure that follows all the kingdoms of the world except for the one that God creates through Israel, and they even backslide many times into it. And it's called what I call the beast religion. It's the Enochian mysticism that's coming back in the end time.